The album is called The All-Devouring, which sounds absolutely metal as fuck. And the band is called Somn. S-M-O... No, that's wrong. S-O-M-N. Fucking hell. It is a debut album from the Russian post-black metal album. My hat fell down. I'm curious to find out where the line between a band just full of other musicians and a supergroup is, because Somn is made up of members of Show Me a Dinosaur, Turner, Pwill, and Osten, which are all like prominent bands in the burgeoning St. Petersburg post-metal, post-black metal scene. And I've heard Show Me a Dinosaur and Turner before, and they're both very, very good bands. So to me, it's a very low-key supergroup because it is made... I'll happily say I can't speak for Pwill or Osten, but for Turner and Show Me the Dinosaur, it kind of strikes me more like a really low-key supergroup because it is all around that hemisphere of that St. Petersburg metal scene I was talking about before. But either way, it's a collection of guys from those various different bands. And for black metal, post-black metal at the moment, we are in a weird phase where there's a lot of bands doing it, but not everyone is doing it well. And I concede that this might not sound like the most positive review to start with. Don't worry, it does get better, but I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent. I will come back, I promise. If you compared it to semi-recent musical... what's the word I'm thinking of? Not a gimmick, that's rude. We'll go with phases, because I can't think of the proper word I want to use. When you look at like musical phases, like gent or nu metal, compared to them, you've already got the foundations of post-black metal made. You've got Death Heaven, you've got Alcest, you've got Bossa de Naga. And similarly for gent, you had Periphery, Animals as Leaders and Textures, whereas nu metal, you had Korn, Limp Bizkit and Deftones. You've got, like, the similarities there for a burgeoning new scene are there. And then after the foundation has been made, you get a mad rush of a bunch of new bands trying to do this new cool thing. And the only ones that survive are either the bands who do expand out of that genre's shackles and do something interesting with it, like how Tesseract added post-rock to gent, Nimic added industrial metal, and The Algorithm added dubstep. And for nu metal, Slipknot added groove, as did Soulfly, and then brought in some of those themes and musicianship from Sepultura to the nu metal sound, and Evanescence added a huge goth rock influence to it as well. You get those sort of bands who they've taken what is new and fresh and interesting and then expanded it more to become even fresher, even newer, and even more interesting. So you've got that side of things, or you've got the side of things where bands will stick to the core principles of that scene or of that genre and just do it really, really well. So for gent, I've looked at Veil of Maya, Born of Osiris, and Monument. And for nu metal, I've looked at Disturbed, Papa Roach, and Linkin Park. None of those bands really expanded outside the realms of their particular genre. But particularly for like the nu metal bands, they just did it really, really well and made something iconic. So they started off with like a quote-unquote one-hit wonder, then everyone went in and realised that the entire album was one-hit wonders, which makes a completely fucking great album. You know what I mean? Probably not, but here we go. To bring it back to the comparing it to post-black metal, this is like the sort of thing we are now. We've got a lot of bands coming through who are doing things differently. So you've got Mirka adding more like folksy elements to it. Oathbreaker, who've got that like history of Brit using crust punk. And then people who are just doing things really, really well. You've got Mull and you've got Harakiri for the Sky. They haven't expanded outside the genre brackets much, but what they do is really, really fucking good. So that integrates with Somn. Where does that leave them? Well, there's nothing insanely new from this album. I definitely think this is more a case of they are sticking to the roots and sticking to common characteristics of the genre. I don't know why I really struggle to say that. I want to say carrots. Um, Musically, this is everything you would ever expect from an album that's been labeled as a post-black metal album, for a post-black metal band. But by no means is this a post-black metal album to get lost in the mix and be amongst like, who can I make fun of today? Incubus, or I don't know how Incubus made it big. Oh, what was the one that used to get made fun of? Either way, they're not going to get lost in the mix of things. They are. This is as no thrills as it is to post-black metal in terms of expanding it out. What it does in terms of like the actual genre itself, they do very, very well. And I think as well, this no thrills approach works really well because it just barrages the listener with really, really strong soundscapes with some really, really good drum work and some really, really good vocal work, which I'll speak more about the vocals in a little bit. For me, they've kind of taken more of a mole approach in that even when it's in the quote-unquote quieter sections, I think I only found one example where this like goes against it, but most of the time they don't have just like one guitarist like heavily echoed or heavily reverb or just going about on his own. For the quiet bits, you will have that level of guitars like but you still got everyone else in the background doing their own little part to like really bring in that sound. And like I said, even when those moments exist where it's just the guitarist having a little to do by himself, they don't make up the whole song. They're very, very short segments, like a minute long at most, and they easily set up for the next part of the song. Tempest is undoubtedly the best part of this album, and it's one of the few examples I could find where it is just him isolated with a guitar, and then it just builds and builds and builds into this huge like next climax part. But with Tempest, it's so fucking good. The atmosphere of the song, the feeling of dread and stress made by that lead guitar as everyone else is going ham as like a traditional like black metal album. Whereas the guitarist, I'm not quite sure who the lead is. It's between, I'm going to butcher some Russian names, so get ready lads. Artem Selyugin and Oleg Salnikov. I think I did alright with that actually. Fuck you guys. I'm not quite sure who the lead guitarist is, but between them, adding that like juxtaposition between their two different playing really, really just fucking grinds at you in a good way. Grind was the wrong word. It gets to you. Yeah, we'll go with that. There's a stop-start riff around the 2-minute 40 mark where even like the backing atmospherics, if you will, the backing effects stop. So you're left with this like isolated bits of music where it's just like kind of like an OG punk kind of riff, like and you've got nothing going on in the background. So for the split seconds, you do have just about less than a second of silence, and then when everything just goes, it's just that those key parts of silence do more damage than like most black metal bands will get in like their lead riff. And overall, it is a song that makes you, that when you listen to it, you will contemplate every life decision you have ever made. And who doesn't want that? Because I know I've made some great decisions. In the grand scheme of things, like I said, it is very paint by numbers post-black metal. It is very good at what it does, but it's, like I said, it's not going outside of what people already know from the genre. I think one thing that will set it apart is the vocalist, whom I believe is also the bassist. There we go. Mikhail Krochkin. I think I'm doing alright. I know I talked about the drummer before, but I really don't want to try his last name. Yeah. Drummer, you've done a spectacularly good job, but I don't want to butcher your name the same way I've done the other friends, so I'm really sorry. To me, Krochkin's vocals are more on par with a grind vocalist. The one that came to my mind the most was a gentleman called Duncan Wilkins. He is a lead singer of a band called Fuckpig, who I'll admit, I haven't listened to that much, but he also was the lead vocalist in another Shane Embury a supergroup called Born to Murder the World, which is like a death metal grindcore sort of album, which is really, really good. Do go check that out. And that's where I've kind of got the comparison. It's a bit more snarly, I guess. Whereas I feel like black metal vocalists, they get some that kind of go to more grunty death metal, low end sort of stuff, the high end shrieks, all that weird like gurning vocal. I think, like I said, I think this is more on par with like a grind esque vocalist, but you know, that was just me. There's definitely enough here for people to enjoy. If you are a fan of the post-punk metal scene in general, I think you'll really, really go in for this. But as it stands at the moment, as much as I did really enjoy the All-Devouring, I think there is still a danger that there's a chance they might get lost in the mix as they go down the line. Like, fair as fuck, there's bands who, like all those like bands I mentioned earlier, they will stay in the remnants of the genre and still be like household name bands because of how good each band is and how good each album is. And fair fuck, Somn could do the exact same thing. They could stay within the realms of post-black metal and just do it really, really good every single time. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened because, like I said, for a debut album, I know they've all got like history with other bands, but as a debut album, this is very, very good. And the fact it's called the All-Devouring is so fucking metal. But there is also a difficulty that they can get kind of lost in the post-black metal mix. Because at the moment, I feel like if you put this, and I've talked about black metal before, I am a more casual listener of the genre. For me, if you, without listening to it too much, obviously I think I could do it now maybe, but you line it up with a bunch of other post-black metal bands, oh god, post-black metal become really difficult to say, it would become quite difficult to differentiate. That's just my take on it. I would love to hear if anyone is more of an expert and like goes into this sort of thing more often. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in terms of differentiating it. This has got a lot of good feedback online, so it makes me more hopeful that they're not going to get like lost in the mix. Because if they can do this on the first album, imagine what like 2 or even that illustrious third album is going to sound like. Either if they like stick to what they know or try and branch out, I'm hopeful that these guys are going to become really, really good and really, really prominent, and they deserve it. And I hope as well, like I said, this burgeoning like St. Petersburg metal scene, I really hope that people start becoming more aware of that because there's a lot of good music coming out of that area of the world at the moment. So if you are, like I said, I've listened to Show Me a Dinosaur and Turn Out before. If you have heard them before, I think you're really going for this. I know Turn Out doesn't have vocals, so that might be a bit different for you. I know there's some people who just prefer this style of music without the vocals, which is fair enough. I think as well, I've compared them to Mole earlier with their approach to like heavy, quieter parts. So I think, yeah, if you were a fan of Mole, that album last year, you're going for this. And also, if you're really a fan of So Hideous, I was kind of comparing them to So Hideous and Harikiri for the Sky. Harikiri tend to use a bit more synth and a bit more like programming in it, whereas I think So Hideous are a little bit more straightforward, akin to Mole. So yeah, that's why I think more So Hideous. So yeah, Mole, Show Me a Dinosaur, or Turner, So Hideous. If you like any of them, go in for the All-Devouring by Somn out of Russia.